Well, welcome to Your In Depth, where we walk through and break down our favorite fictional universes. I'm Jacob, and with me, as usual, I got Evan.
I like Dr. Pepper.
And he's a little on the spectrum, so just give him a little bit of grace there, because he's going to say some stuff that, you know... Okay, so right as I said that, sorry, I know that the mic didn't pick it up, but I was just like, yeah, so give him a little grace there or whatever. I finished that sentence and I just hear the loudest meow of my cat all the way downstairs, just like, almost like, yeah. Anyway.
That's okay. We were doing the last episode and I made a comment about hearing my cats doing something in the other room.
Yeah.
We finished the episode. I walk out there because we took our little 15-minute.
Right.
They knocked our paper plates off of the fridge.
Great.
Yeah,
that's
that was. Yeah.
Actually, I feel like my cat's getting closer. I thought I heard him coming up because it's right around when he eats. Yeah. It doesn't matter. So he's vocal. He's so we are covering the Clone Wars. We're going to do something a little bit different, and I mentioned it in the Rings of Power episode, but hey, maybe you don't listen to Rings of Power stuff. Maybe you're just here for Star Wars. Maybe you're just tuning in. I don't know. But we are going to, rather than pairing off Clone Wars episodes 2 at a time, we're going to narrow it down a little further to, well, it's not narrowing it down, but we're going to group them differently so that it's covering like essential kind of story arcs. So like rather than picking up mid like it's like, okay, we got episodes 11 and 12, and then 13 and 14. Well, 12 through 14 are the Mandalore Arc. And it's like, rather than breaking them up that way, we're going to do 12, 13, 14, cover the Mandalore Arc, and then, do it that way. So yep. With that, because last time we did do 11 and 12, we're going to revisit 12, but we're not doing the whole walkthrough narration anymore. We're trying a new format to where we've gone through and we've just jotted down notes, kind of in the form of bullet points, and that's how we're going to go through the episode. But we are going to start with a summary so that you kind of get a refresher, but we're not going to go like beat for beat, all the way through it.
Yeah, and with that as well, since we're like Jacob said, we're recovering episode 12 in future arcs as well. Some of them, a specific example would be like Domino Squad, where we've covered some of the episodes that covers Domino Squad. We're going to revisit those, tie them into one big arc. That way it's all in one place for you guys to listen to. And any kind of like spare episodes, kind of on the side that don't really have an arc to them, or just kind of like standalone episodes, we'll kind of group those together as well. And for the most part, as much as we can, stay within the season. Right, so we're not going to try and like go outside of season 2 too much for an arc unless it's for a very specific arc. So like kind of those standalone episodes in season 2 will get grouped together into one episode for you guys. So we're still going to be covering everything, just in a little different way.
Yeah. Okay. What Evan said. While you were talking, my wife decided to bring my cat up and lock him in here with me. So,
nice.
Yeah. Thanks.
But with that, unless you have anything else, Jacob, quick summary of how the arc unfolds.
Sorry, he's here now. So now if he meows, it's great. I don't want him
but
here.
Quick summary how the arc unfolds.
Yep.
We start with episode 1, where there's been some unrest on the planet of Mandalore. And the Jedi, our favorite, everyone's favorite, Obi-Wan Kenobi, is sent to investigate on behalf of the Jedi Order. With the rise of a group of outcasts known as Death Watch, spreading fear and dissent throughout the planet and the peoples. Obi-Wan arrives to see what the biz is, and he gets reconnected with a new character that we're introduced to, but someone from his past, Duchess Satine. And with that, they just start kind of looking into what's happening, seeing if they can figure out what's going on. With that, they travel to the moon of Concordia, which is a moon of Mandalore, for anybody not piecing that together. Mainly, probably me. Where they find a Death Watch, kind of like, I don't know if to say outpost, but base of operations, where Obi-Wan squares off against their leader, one Pre Vizsla.
Yep.
That episode concludes with their fight and Obi-Wan and Duchess Satine having to get out of there. Episode 2 of the arc picks up right where that one leaves off, with Obi-Wan and Duchess Satine boarding a ship with Anakin, Commander Cody, Captain Rex, and a few other clones to make their way to Coruscant, so that Duchess Satine can address the Senate to get them to not send more clones to Mandalore.
Yeah. Kind of in opposition to the whole Republic intervention.
Yep, because Mandalore is wanting to stay neutral in the war. They don't want Republic troops there. And we'll go into more of that later in the episode.
Yeah.
But the whole episode 2 takes place on the ship where there's some strange assassin droids that have been smuggled on board, with Obi-Wan protecting Duchess Satine, her council, and a few other senators on board. And Anakin with the clones trying to find these assassin droids and take them out. That episode goes through with those kind of points in place and concludes with a droid attack on the shuttle that Anakin and the clones are able to beat back, as well as one of Duchess Satine's quote-unquote friends being a traitor that smuggled the droids on board. Kind of giving Obi-Wan and Satine an ultimatum, or not really an ultimatum, but kind of like a catch-22 of like, who's going to kill me, who's going to be the murderer, and of course our boy Anakin comes in and freaking kills him like it's no one's business.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
And that concludes with that kind of wrapped up with episode 3 taking place on Coruscant itself, with Duchess Satine trying to convince the Senate not to send troops. There's some assassination attempts on her life, with her and Obi-Wan kind of working together, but not really. It's kind of mainly her trying to get to the bottom of things.
Yeah. And with that, too, the whole kind of premise with that one is that there was a falsified hollow recording.
Yeah.
Kind of
like one of her
going against her, but saying like, "No, we need help. We need Republic intervention." And
it was from like a high-ranking member of the Mandalorian people. So it was like there's like a certain level of credibility to it,
right?
But they're able to get the proper recording and show it to the Senate, where they then vote against sending troops to Mandalore,
right.
Therefore allowing Mandalore to stay neutral in the war.
Yeah, and so with this, one of the underlying things, as we just talked about, is Death Watch. They are in opposition to Satine's neutral position. They are kind of idolizing the old warrior way of Mandalore. Yeah. And so actually we got an ad from something like that here. So we're going to do a sponsor break, and then we'll get into our bullet points.
Yeah.
For years, Duchess Satine has ruled with cowardice while preaching progress. Progress for Mandalore is not forward, but back to old. Do not stand idle while outsiders dictate our destiny. Stand tall. Stand strong. Stand with Death Watch.
This message was paid for by the Pre Vizsla campaign. So whatever, I guess there. Yeah, well,
I don't know if I agree with Death Watch sponsoring our videos, but might go sign up myself.
Do you hate money? Do you hate
after listening to that ad? I might go sign up for myself.
Anyway, I don't know. Death Watch, I guess. I don't.
Yeah,
whatever. Money.
So. But with that, though, Jacob, do you want to start us off with our first bullet point going into episode 1 of this 3-episode arc?
Sure, yeah. So the first thing I had pointed out was I forget who was having the discussion. I think it was Obi-Wan to Satine talking about coming into contact with a bounty hunter wearing Mandalorian armor, so Jango Fett. And whoever was like, they're basically like, they have no correlation to us. They, something like that. But my bullet point was, I was like, well, the Clone Wars has an interesting approach of just any episode could be just anywhere in time.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It's not like it's like episode 12 could be, before season 1, episode 1.
Right.
They don't care. So I wondered where that took place, and it was literally just a year after Attack of the Clones. It was just it was right in there. So it wasn't like he had just came from that whole movie, and it was like, and coming across or talking about that. But that was something I was kind of curious on, and I looked up. And
sorry,
so
I gotta take this phone call real quick. I apologize.
Oh, great. Another phone call.
Hello?
Is it? Did you get in touch with the freaking Death Watch recruiter? He's muted. Okay, coming back. So the next note that I had was just kind of talking about the coordination of the kind of upheaval of the order on Mandalore. It's like you trigger Senate investigation, and then they feel the need to have a Republic military presence, and then that's going to encourage rebellion, and then Death Watch kind of continues to step in and gain kind of favor.
Yeah, step in and kind of like be the quote unquote heroes of Mandalore, repelling the Republic invasion.
Right. I just thought that was kind of something, because so later on, eventually when we cover Andor, we see a lot of like kind of these like almost like 20 steps ahead chess moves on getting something done. To where, like, did you end up watching much of it?
I haven't watched much of it yet.
Okay. So there is a scene when it's talking primarily about the Gorman massacre, where you see a peaceful place, and then the Empire staging the whole thing, and you see how they've like put things into place to encourage certain actions to take place, so then they can react to those actions,
right, and
continue to just get in the end what they want.
Right.
And it's like completely screwed up. But it's pretty interesting in this case, seeing like this is how the dominoes are going to fall. Here's what they are doing to try to manipulate it.
And I like it with something like this, the way what Chancellor Palpatine is trying to do here, right? Mm-hmm. Because we do know that Death Watch is getting help from the Separatists, and of course Chancellor Palpatine's in charge of both Republic and the Separatists and through the shadows and all that. But I do like with this how it's like we get the full plan, of like what they want to happen. Like at first we get the plan of what Death Watch wants to happen. But then once it gets back to Coruscant, back in like episode 3 of this arc, we get how like Chancellor Palpatine wanted things to unfold and what they were planning, what they were expecting, and Count Dooku involved with that as well. And it's like with something like the Gorman massacre, it's like, well, you don't have people like the Jedi or like a Senator Amidala,
right. Yeah, there's not really any outside like
to step in and mess up the plans.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's really interesting to see how this all plays out, and then how two people really in the grand scheme of things, like Obi-Wan and not even really Padme that much in this. She just presents that correct holotape at the end of episode 3 or the third episode in the arc. But like how someone like Obi-Wan stepping in and supporting Duchess Satine and her attempts can just change the plan, like throw wrenches in the plan so much. Because like if Obi-Wan's not there, Duchess Satine does not have the support. She does not have the ally that she needs to get any of this done and any of this sorted out. And so to me, it's like I said, it's just kind of interesting to see how like one person can throw such a big wrench in this, truthfully, what's a well thought out plan. Like, it's a terrible plan, don't get me wrong, like, terrible in what they're trying to do, but, like, but, like, the detail and thought that's been put into this plan, kind of like you were saying, is just, like you said, it's like 20 moves ahead in a chess game.
Yeah. But that's all I had regarding that. It was just kind of interesting seeing the steps laid out, and then it's like, oh, this is okay. Yeah. It's really pretty thought out, and like as you said, a good plan, a good bad plan.
Right.
Yeah. And,
a good bad guy plan.
Yeah. The next thing I had said when they were on the moon, we had seen Pre Vizsla, and he's the leader of the Death Watch.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of gets revealed that he is, or whatever. We covered this episode in one of the last podcast episodes, so I know that we've already touched on this stuff. So I'm just going to mention it, but I don't anticipate us having much discussion because, like, we have.
Right.
But Pre Vizsla, I thought was cool that it's voiced by Jon Favreau. And then also to branch off of Pre Vizsla, we look at the show The Mandalorian. You've got Paz Vizsla, same house, same
ancestor of
right.
Yeah, Pre Vizsla, ancestor to Paz Vizsla. Yeah.
Right. And so there was that, but then also the first instance of the dark saber.
Yeah.
And I know that we probably went on some whole thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We've gone over that quite a bit.
Probably we don't need to reiterate.
I did have one thing. I don't know if we brought it up previously talking about the dark saber before, but it was something that I thought of while watching this episode this morning. How I'm sure you've seen them too. People have those videos of like, who's the real owner of the darksaber by this point in Star Wars, or like who's it really belong to, yada yada yada.
Or no, maybe not. Whatever. Where it's like the direct lineage, where it's like actually technically it's this guy, like that kind of thing.
And I was thinking about this while watching the episode, and a lot of people go to this thing of like, oh, it belongs to, I don't know, like Anakin, or it belongs to like Darth Vader because he beat so-and-so, who beat so-and-so, who beat so-and-so, who beat so-and-so, who beat Pre Vizsla, things like that. And with having watched Mandalorian all the way through and everything, something that I think a lot of these other content creators are missing when it comes to the proper ownership of the darksaber is not just about beating the person who has it. You have to claim it as well. Because, like, at the end of this episode, like, Obi-Wan beats Pre Vizsla. Like, he wins.
Right.
Pre Vizsla has to have his 3 bodyguards, like, take over for him and, shoot some missiles at Obi-Wan and Duchess Satine so they can get out of there. But because Obi-Wan doesn't claim it, like, Obi-Wan doesn't go over there and, like, pick it up and I claim this by right of conquest or right of victory or whatever, it doesn't belong to Obi-Wan.
Yeah, and I know some of the ones I've seen do accommodate for that, where they're like, if it's basically like if he would have claimed it, but it's like, but he didn't. So what you have now, which actually, okay, but then in the Mandalorian, where did Mando basically claim it by taking it off of Moff Gideon, even though he didn't want it?
Right.
He didn't want it, but he picked it up. That means he claimed it.
Basically him defeating Moff Gideon in Mandalorian and taking the darksaber off of Moff Gideon.
It's basically 2 steps.
Per the Mandalorian view, that is him claiming the darksaber. Okay. And so like when he tries to hand it off to Bo-Katan in Mandalorian, that doesn't work because he didn't fight. Like so the fighting in there is key.
2 check boxes to tick off and
Yeah, because like I said, like I've seen some videos where people are talking about, and they're like, "Oh, well, Obi-Wan beat Pre Vizsla here in this episode, and then Obi-Wan got beat by Darth Maul in this episode, and then Darth Maul got beat by Palpatine in this episode, but then Anakin killed Palpatine as Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi, and yada 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 yada." It's like the beating the person is part of it, but you have to claim it as well. And I think a lot of people miss that crucial step there when it comes to the darksaber and how that whole like prophecy or how that like the prophecy is tied with it and how the rules with it all work. That was just something that I had thought about when watching the episode. And like I said, I've seen a lot of people cover it in different ways, and I feel like a lot of people miss that crucial part of it.
That makes sense. I didn't really think about that.
Yeah.
But that was the first episode in our little arc.
I had some stuff on here that really wasn't worth discussing too much, but just kind of points to...
You just mentioning? Okay.
So I just had... most of it got covered, but I had like Mandalore, and specifically Duchess Satine, is basically the figurehead of the like Confederate of neutral systems that are still part of the Republic, but they don't want to be in the war. I think in the episode it says like 1,500 plus planets are part of this kind of like group that Duchess Satine is heading. And so when it comes to like this plot that Palpatine has, brewed up or thought up, like, of course it would be the leader of the
That's
party.
Significance in this.
Yeah. Another one, just as a reminder, like, obviously we know Death Watch is doing bad stuff, but they're, like, committing acts of terror, like terrorism acts against the people. Another one, Duchess Satine is a hardcore pacifist. She believes in no violence, period. Which is kind of funny because in the later in this episode and in the other two episodes, we see her fight. But she, like, preaches pure pacifism. At least as far as I understand pure pacifism, which is not very much.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were just the other, like, I guess technically two kind of points that weren't really mentioned, but I don't really think they require too much back and forth conversation. Just, they're just some things to keep in mind going forward is kind of what I was going for with those.
But so I guess the next episode, I don't. There's only a few things really that I pointed out, and it's kind of like with a lot of the Clone Wars. I feel like we've talked about it, where there's just kind of like if there's a lot of like there is dialogue and there's like development of plot, but it's just like there's a lot of action. So I don't feel like there's always necessarily a bunch to talk about. But the things that I mentioned was just like I always think it's funny what is it, the collection of half-truths and hyperbole.
Yeah.
I think that's how Satine describes Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
But then they do have a background. I just mentioned that. We pick up on it in the episode. And he even explains it, I believe, in either this one or the next one.
I think it's this one that he does.
Yeah. And it's just, they had background. There's a love interest there. But
it's kind of like a mirror of like the Anakin Padme relationship, except where Anakin shot his shot with Padme and got Padme, Obi-Wan did not shoot his shot with Duchess Satine.
Right.
Like when you listen to Obi-Wan kind of explain, or kind of you listen to them kind of talk about their past, it's kind of like, well, he's protecting her from these people. Well, Anakin was protecting Padme from assassins. Anakin and Padme hid out on Naboo, for the most of that duration, whereas Obi-Wan and Duchess Satine were like kind of on the run, but he's still like there with her, protecting her. It's like there's some similarities there, but you can see where like Obi-Wan obviously took the path of staying true to the Jedi way, whereas Anakin diverged from that path. You can obviously, once you get further into Star Wars content, you can see the fallout of his diverging from the Jedi path quite evidently.
Yep.
Yeah.
I also mentioned that guy. It was the one that this was the ship episode where there was the kind of
like assassin spider droid
and
things
and droids and stuff. His name is Tal Merrick, and he's got a homeworld of Kalevala.
Yeah, because he's another senator, isn't he?
What?
He's another senator?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's kind of the part of the Council of Neutral Systems. That's all that I really found about him. But I was curious, like, what kind of extent that is. So he's also on that council. Also, Well, that Satine leads.
Yeah. Yeah, because in this episode too, you have God, what's his name? He's like the representative for the Twi'leks. I can't think of his name now.
Orn
Free-Taa.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have him in there as well. Yeah. I did have one. Again, I don't have very many bullet points for this episode either. But one of them I just kind of put just for clarification as well, like Anakin, Obi-Wan, Cody, and Rex, and a small group of clones there with them. I didn't put down the names for the clones because it's like I don't understand why people get so obsessed with these like named clones that show up for one episode and die in the episode. Like the one that bothers me the most, and I was thinking about this watching this episode, because I was like, I'm not writing down those. There's like 4 of those clones, and they all die in this episode, so I'm not going to worry about remembering who they were.
Yeah.
You know? But the one that bothers me the most, and there's just this huge fandom for some reason, is Denel. In the episode where with Cad Bane, where he's on like a separatist frigate, and Anakin and Ahsoka are trying to arrest him.
Yeah.
And this clone named Denel and another clone go to try and arrest Cad Bane, and we get the shot of where it looks like Denel kills Cad Bane, but Cad Bane had killed the 2 clones and switched places, like taken Denel's armor and put it on. And for whatever reason, I have come across I don't know how many stuff about this one clone who was in one episode, who dies in this episode, and for some reason there's just this big fan base for him. I don't get it.
Huh. Well, maybe
and
I
know that just
clarify that.
I know that just goes off into a whole nother Star Wars episode that we'll I think we already covered, or we'll cover in the future, whichever. But it's like I was just thinking about like these 4 clones, and like they have names, but they're gonna die anyways. You know, I don't understand why people get so caught up on like. Because the whole thing with this one is like he cut Cad Bane, and that's, you know, Ahsoka sees Cad Bane bleeding from the arm, and that's how she realized he's not a clone. And so like people get hung up on that, like, oh, Denel got a hit on Cad Bane, you know, he's so good. Not that good. He got killed, dog.
Huh.
But
I'm
it's
curious
just
about
like
why that is. But.
Yeah, I just don't get it, and it's like. These 4 clones, yeah, they fight against the assassin droids, and they take out some of the smaller ones and stuff, but they all get killed. Now, if you're going to come to me with like the clone from Revenge of the Sith, with Obi-Wan's like battalion that like kills the spider droid and jumps on top of it and guns it down, and has this badass moment, like that's pretty cool. I like that guy. He looks pretty dope doing that. But it's like that's the extent of it. I don't know why people are so like hardcore fans of some of these clones that get like 5 minutes of spotlight and then they die. Yeah. I just don't get it. And my brain went there watching this episode.
But
sorry, I know I'm rambling, but it's just
it's fine. So the comment, one of the comments I made, I just thought was funny, was Anakin's like, go find your girlfriend or go, and he's just like, yeah, and he takes off running. He's like, wait, no. And like,
yeah.
But in this episode too, Satine confesses her love for Obi-Wan, and he does the iconic kind of, had you have said the word, I would have left the Jedi Order.
Yeah. I think the only other real thing of note that I had that might have some dialogue or like conversation to go into is that scene towards the end when, you know, Obi-Wan and Duchess Satine are standing there, and I already forgot his name. The other senator has the button to blow up the ship, you know, and he's kind of like gloating to them, like he knows he's going to die, but like who's going to kill him? You know, is Duchess Satine going to betray everything she believes in? You know, or is Obi-Wan going to be the hero to everyone except the one person, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, you know.
That he cares what they think.
Right. Yeah.
And so he's presenting this and stuff, and then Anakin's like, I don't care about any of that, and kills him. Which I thought,
but
it's so in line with his character.
But no, that scene, though, just like, for me at least, it really sits there and makes you think. It's like you have someone, Duchess Satine, who is anti-violence, right? Like, she does not want to hurt people. She does not want to kill people. She condemns it at every turn, regardless of what the reason is. And we see this when she talks to Obi-Wan over the last episode, this episode, and the next episode. You know, every time there is violence, even if it's protecting her, she condemns said violence. But then what does that person do when they're put in this position where dozens of people's lives are at stake, and you're one of the two people that could stop it? You know, it's like,
and it kind of makes, obviously it presents a moral dilemma for her, because it's like, okay, is there necessary violence? Is there, so whatever. It's just, no.
Well, and for Obi-Wan too, though, it's like, it's not so much a, looking at his own morality that he faces in this situation. It's more of like, what is my friend who I have deep feelings for going to think of me because of this thing that I may have to do? Because like if Obi-Wan kills him there, like, I'm convinced that's it. Like, Obi-Wan and Satine are no longer friends. She will not interact with him, which I think, truthfully, I think it's kind of dumb on her part. But like I'll give her props for sticking up to her convictions. Like good for you to sticking up for sticking up for what you believe in. But it's like the life of this one guy who has already killed and is planning to kill more over the lives of the innocents that are still alive on this shuttle. It's like, taking a life is bad, yes. Not arguing that whatsoever, but it's like, which one are you going to go with? One person die. It's like the whole like railroad track scenario where it's like, you got 5 on one side, 1 on the other side. It's like, both options are bad. None of it's good. But it's like, when you're in this position, you got to take the one that's like the least lives lost.
Right.
And like there has to be some sort of like extent of which someone like Duchess Satine would understand that. But it just kind of seems like she doesn't understand that. This far. I don't know if that's just because we haven't gotten enough of her to see her character fully fleshed out, or if they're writing her to be this hardcore extremist, stick to her guns no matter what period. I'm not sure which one it is yet.
That's all I had for that episode.
Yeah.
So if you're good with moving into the next one, I've only got 2 points there. One of them, I'm sorry. Anything more for that episode?
I don't think so. That's okay. Yeah. Episode 2 didn't really have much. Just kind of like the story beats of what happens. Yeah. Truthfully, like that was mostly like action episodes. There's not really a whole lot to talk about with that.
So in 2:14, Obi-Wan, my first thing is he isn't very wise when he's talking to Satine. He's asking, like, are you sure you should be going off and doing this? And he says something like, he's like, well, in your state of mind. And she's just like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, anybody in this would be hysterical. And she's just like, so you're saying I'm hysterical? And it's just like he's digging his hole deep.
I don't put this one on Obi-Wan. I put this one on Duchess Satine, personally.
I mean, I'm not saying he was
like
wrong,
he's just trying to be a good friend, trying to comfort his friend whose life has just been in danger. Like, I don't put that on Obi-Wan.
I was just saying the wording.
Mm-hmm. But like, she cuts him off like multiple times.
Well, she does, yeah.
When he's trying to like express, where he's like, anyone else like in this position would be hysterical. And then she cuts him off so he can't finish what he was going to say. He was probably going to say something like, you're taking this pretty well, or like, you seem calm and collected, or whatever, and she's just like, nope.
Yeah. But this was a pretty big episode of just like, okay, there's a discovery of the altered recording, falsified one. She needs to get that to the Senate but then she's being hunted. She gets framed for a different murder, and then goes along, gets Obi-Wan's help, and then distracts the guards so that he can go in and give the thing to Padme while she turns herself in. And then suddenly it's just all okay. That's my other note, is just like, okay. She was still wanted for murder. So how did that part resolve? Because like the overall thing did. That part, it was just like, oh, now it's magically better. And I was kind of like, oh. Okay.
Well, because they don't really address that bit there. Watching the episode this morning, though, I just have to assume that because that Mandalorian that's trying to kill Duchess Satine, right? Mm-hmm. He shoots her contact, and then the police show up, and she goes on the run. But later in the episode, Obi-Wan fights that same Mandalorian trying to kill Duchess Satine. So I have to assume that Obi-Wan's like, nah, guys, we're good. This is who it was. I fought him. She was not involved.
Maybe, yeah.
I have to assume that's what it is. Because, like you said, otherwise it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Well, it was more so like it makes sense how it would be resolved, kind of. Like you could probably figure out a way. Right. But it just was kind of like one moment. It's like, this here. And it's like, wait, but that one thing. And it's like, nah, it's better.
Yeah. Well, and with that tape, though, as well, where like that altered tape or that altered recording, that just goes back to what we were talking about in regards to the first episode with kind of like the genius play by Palpatine here with his good evil guy plan. It's like you took this tape that this high-ranking individual who's respected by Duchess Satine, where he's saying that they don't want Republic intervention. You know, they don't want Republic help. And you take that and you edit it and turn it into, we need Republic help. Mm-hmm. And then you kill the guy who was recorded saying this, so he cannot come back and say, no, that's not what I said. That was faked. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just like, it's another layer in the 20 moves ahead that we were talking about earlier. Yep, heard that, Mao.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just like, it's another one of those like chess moves, you know, planned in advance to get this done.
Right.
And again, just like in the previous episodes, it's like I throughout all of Clone Wars and into like Revenge of the Sith and everything, Palpatine has to just be sitting there like, how the heck do I get rid of Obi-Wan Kenobi? This dude has messed up so many of my plans.
Yeah.
You know, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, he permanently disfigures and scars my new apprentice, who is the chosen one, who's supposed to be the strongest Force user ever to exist. And this dude just comes along and beats him?
Yeah.
And it's just like...
What do you have to say, bud? Can you share your input on Obi-Wan Kenobi? What do you think? Hot? He is hot.
Yeah,
what else?
I agree.
What else? Anything else?
Our guest on today's episode, Jacob's cat.
Hello. Cue German music.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
But no, I just have to imagine like Palpatine just sitting there like, you know, hand on forehead, like, how do I get rid of this guy?
Right.
Because it's just over the course of the Clone Wars and the events of Revenge of the Sith, you know, and then even into like Episode 4, A New Hope, this guy just shows up on your Death Star after he hasn't been heard from in 20 years. You know, it's just like Palpatine has to be sitting there like pounding his head against the wall.
Right. Well, it is the time that my cat is screaming to be fed. And we finished our episode there, so I don't have anything else.
My only other note that I wanted to say,
yeah,
because I wrote this down, I thought it was pretty funny. thought it was pretty funny. Duchess Satine spouts fanatic ideas, but not completely wrong.
No.
Yeah, she just like spouts off these ideals that she has, like no violence ever, yada yada yada. It's like, yeah, in the normal kind of everyday normal day, yeah, we don't want violence, but like sometimes you got to do a little violence to get some stuff done because people aren't going to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah.
But I just had that written down. I was like, oh my gosh.
Hey, Evan. He's staring right at it. I'm angling the webcam down so I can show Evan the cat as he sits staring at me, like meowing.
And then I think this would be my last point. So something to mention for this episode is at the end of the episode we get a dialogue between Pre Vizsla and Count Dooku. Mm-hmm. Where Pre Vizsla is basically like, you said this was going to work, we were going to save Mandalore, yada, 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 and Count Dooku basically is like, well, you better not do nothing yet, because without my support or without the support of the people, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
And kind of alludes to having more plans, other plans to continue building unrest on Mandalore, kind of what's the word? Like hinting at further issues on Mandalore and further Mandalorian arcs to come, plots to happen there, things like that. Yeah. And of course, we do know more.
I'll be back.
Yeah, we do know more Mandalorian stuff does occur in the Clone Wars.
Yep.
And we'll, delve into those when they come up. But unless you have anything else, Jacob, on the episode specifically.
No, I don't. What about you, Todd?
Me too.
He says no.
But with that, if we get, a big enough following and people want it, we may, at the end of Clone Wars, go back through and loop in. You do longer episodes and kind of put everything in order for all the Mandalorian episodes and how those all line up.
Could do
and put that all into one big episode and other things like that. But Mandalore will be seen again.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, let us know what you think of this kind of format if you've been following us for a little bit. Definitely share it around. We have a couple of goals that I will... I'll just let him say it. Yeah.
So, first off, we are continuing with our every 1,000 views or 1,000 downloads, releasing
also,
blooper reels.
Letting the cat take over. Just
well, not too bad.
Sorry, bud.
So every 1,000 views or downloads on, I believe it's Apple Podcast, right? Or is that Spotify?
The downloads is across anything.
Oh, okay. Well, every 1,000, we release blooper reels. We already have several of them out, if you haven't checked them out yet. We have our 25 Apple reviews.
Apple,
will lead us to do a live stream coverage of whatever we're on at the time, whether it be Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or maybe, Harry Potter, or whatever we're on at the time, where you guys can interact with us as we go over our coverage.
Yeah.
And then Jacob has a goal that he wants to reach of 500, was it Spotify views? Or
Spotify followers.
500 Spotify followers, where he has some sea shanty that's related to our coverage of Rings of Power. That if we hit those 500 followers on Spotify, he will...
Yeah, if you're curious about knowing what all that's about, check out Rings of Power Episode 3 coverage. I may have made a fake ad that involves a song about Evan.
But I don't think I'm forgetting anything else.
Nope, that's it. Bye.
Toodles.
Deuces.